afternoon, everybody. 4 minutes past 12 noon. It's Jim Whiteness, Simon Jordan, alongside us, Arsenal Invincible, Martin Keown, and we are live on TalkSport. Thanks for all the messages coming in, all the texts, all the tweets. Thank you so much for that. We rely on them, and you never let us down. 81089 for those. Martin Keown, of course, in the building on the same day as Emmanuel Petit, and Monsieur Petit will be joining us live in studio very shortly. But Simon, I want to go north for the time being. In Scotland, Rangers beat Dundee United at the weekend, but they're 5 points behind Celtic and Aberdeen at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Behind the scenes, Rangers Chief Executive James Bisgrove has left for Saudi Arabia, and now the chairman, John Bennett, has stepped down because of ill health. Now it's being reported that former chairman, Johannesburg-based Dave King, may be returning as the club goes about attracting much-needed additional investment. So, is that about to happen? Let's find out. Mr. Dave King, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jim. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining us from Johannesburg. Simon is with me, of course, a former club owner himself, and Arsenal Invincible, Martin Keown as well. So, can you bring us up to date right away now? Are you returning to the football club, and are you going back in maybe on a short-term basis? What's the situation, Dave?
The situation is certainly not that I'm returning. What I've done is I've made myself available. And the reasons for that are that, you know, as much as it was unsurprising for me that John stepped down, because I've been in fairly regular contact with him, and I really do completely understand the stress of sin and the impact of being the chairman of Rangers at this point in time has been having on him. And you know, I just hope he's well, and I just hope that now that he has stepped down, that he can recover himself and get back to normal. Because I do know how tough it is being chairman of Rangers at any time, and then in particularly in this difficult situation. But having seen John stepping down, under normal circumstances, I would have expected someone else to have stepped up. You know, someone from the board. To have stepped up, and you know, to me, the absence of someone stepping up, you know, those who do know what's going on, who can step in on behalf of John, because normally you'd expect when the chairman steps down, there's someone else on the board steps up. And when I heard that what the board have decided to do is kind of go outside and get a headhunter, you know, and try and get a chairman, a CEO. You know, the job at Rangers is very, very different from chairing a public company, or, you know, right now, if the club is in crisis, the extent of it, I don't know. Only those inside do know, but certainly the operational issues within Rangers are a challenge. A lot of the policy, procedures and processes that were in place at the time that I stepped down have been hollowed out during Douglas's reign. And I thought, you know, if no one is going to step up, and we're going to have to go to some external city-type appointment, which I'm absolutely certain will not take the club forwards. But as the leading shareholder, perhaps I could step up for a period of time. So I've made an announcement that I'm available to do that. I think something has to happen fairly quickly. The club lacks leadership in all aspects of the club. Clearly, we don't all know what is going wrong, but a lot is going wrong. It's recruitment, it's on-the-field issues, it's off-the-field issues, there's poor management issues, it is going on with the stadium. And, you know, without giving a massive introduction, you know, something as simple as the stadium, you don't have to be smart to know that if you've got a project like that must start like 10 minutes after the team finishes the last game in May. If you're going to be open to Ibrox for absolutely vital European Champions League qualifiers, where Ibrox is a huge advantage for Rangers. We've seen it against bigger and better teams. And to have started that project with some of the steelers still in China just indicates a lack of basic project management, basic management skills. And I'm afraid that's what's happening right throughout the club at the moment. So I thought, I've got the biggest interest. There is a crisis. I think it needs someone to step in quite quickly. So I'll just throw my name in the hat. It's now up to the board, I guess, to decide what they want to do with it.
I mean, Dave, I know for a fact, and Simon will come in here in a second, you yourself have put millions into this football club. Does it sadden you that today, here we are, the 16th of September 2024, you're telling me There's a crisis at Rangers. It lacks leadership in all aspects of the club.
No, I think that's 100% right. And my sadness, disappointment, and there's so many other words I could apply in a similar vein, comes from, there's probably two main categories. The one is that, at the time that we went through the rebuild of the club, and again, to use a term, the club had been hollowed out and back to the Eastvale and the kind of Mike Ashley situation. We had to rebuild all of that, policies, procedures, recruitment, scouting. I mean, everything within the club was broken, and we got it to a point where we were able to make decisions and yes, take some risks and management risks. And at least everything we did, there was a purpose, there was a track, there was a solidarity, and progress was being made. And that got us to 55, which is clearly was a big target. And my biggest disappointment is to see the areas where we've gone backwards there, where policies and processes that were in place are no longer complied with by the present board. And I'm going to areas like recruitment, how we recruit players, how we write commercial contracts for players, how we deal with specific issues about temperament, character, all of the things that are part of recruitment that we were very careful about looking at. That have just been abandoned. Managers being allowed to do their own thing with no oversight from the board. So you have, first of all, the limited resources that we had in competing with our neighbours had to be applied very smartly. And we did the opposite. We've actually wasted the money that we did have. And my second disappointment is there was a great opportunity, you might remember, with when Cali and the American consortium were coming in to put substantial funds into the club. I'd seen proof of funds. I'd negotiated with them on a business basis. They were going to come in, and it was rejected by Douglas Park, quite frankly, not really by the board. And on the basis that the board will put the money in, we've got everything under control. And clearly that hasn't happened. So not only have we failed to take in new money that was vital to closing the gap, but we've also, quite frankly, wasted the limited resources that we did have, and kind of wasted the value of the Europa League run. Some very nice transfers with Patterson, with Bassey. That really was a windfall for the club. So they helped us bridge the gap, and instead we've just wasted it.
Dave, I've heard you say that you're obviously still a significant shareholder, but given the fact that you're being very vociferous in the public domain now, and you're being very critical of the existing structure, how is that going to bring into play you coming back into the fold? Is it a case of you're speaking plainly and people will have to get on with it? Or is it a case of that you've got some levers to be able to pull that ensures you come back into play? So given that you are being vociferous and you're being quite critical of the existing structure, how's that going to play out with you coming back into it?
Well, I think it's not going to be comfortable for some of those who are in place right now. So, some of the incumbents would not like the idea of me coming back. I think they know how I work. I'm fairly direct. I would expect results quite quickly. And I expect people to kind of put their shoulder to the wheel, which I think is not what's happening. So, yes, I could imagine that there are some within the club who might be more comfortable with an external opponent. But the question is, from the club's point of view, they've got advantages that I am the largest shareholder, so at least there's a strong economic interest in my part to get things right. And secondly, at least I've got a track record of having the energy and the ability.
Is it a call to action, Dave, or is it something you left Rangers for your own reasons, and you were presiding over, controlling Rangers for a very difficult period of its time? And you've talked about the basic disciplines that you put into play, the common sense, circumstances of how to run a football club. Is this a call to action from you in terms of people getting their asses in gear, or is it actually you wanting to come back and shake it up and take control of it to be able to give it a better direction?
I would like to come back. It wasn't my intention, but it would be my intention now to actually come back. So it's not really a call to action in that sense. It's not a wake-up call. I think it does need someone to come in quickly. It needs someone with institutional experience, not an outsider. I don't think he's going to spend months or whatever trying to get his arms around the problem. It needs someone to come in quickly. And I think there's two major objectives. The one is to reintroduce the operational policies, controls, procedures, processes that have gone missing over the last couple of years and get the club up to speed there. And secondly, to find a new investor. So I would imagine if I come in, say, for a 3-year period, is the kind of time I was thinking of, where I can first of all get the club up and running properly and have a proper plan going forward as to how we're going to bridge the gap. Now, I've got no idea what I'll find when I go in there, but hopefully it's not as bad as it was when I went in 9 years ago.
What are the mechanisms that you can pull? What are the levers that you can pull, Dave? Given the fact you're a significant shareholder, are you looking to co-opt other support from the board that are not concerned with the brutality of what you're saying, that will see the benefit of it, and those are the levers that you can pull? Or is there a different mechanism that installs you back into position?
Look, I've had discussions with other parties around it who I would need support of. It's not something I can do on my own. And certainly there is a move by interested parties with vested interest both within and outside the board who understand that there is a level of urgency. I think this season is slipping. Certainly on the pitch, this season is slipping. And I'm now talking as a supporter. I think it's going to be a very, very challenging season. I think by the end of October, with European games coming up, I think the club could be in a very difficult place. And there's no indication, there's no leadership. I mean, if I look at some of the interviews, I had to give a lot of frank interviews. Sometimes people didn't like them, but they were always honest. And the situation was what it was. But I get a sense that people are just dealing with platitudes now. I think the supporters, if they're going to continue to support the club as opposed to become apathetic, need to know that the people out there are going to lead the club, must be visible, must be transparent, and must provide a way forward.
Dave, Simon and I were on the day. Graeme Souness said there isn't much of a gap between Rangers and Celtic at the moment on the field of play. Would you say that's wrong? And would you say no? That he's right. There isn't much of a gap, and we will compete for the title in a big way, a significant way this season.
I've got the utmost respect for Graeme, and he knows a lot more about football than I do. But I think there's a very significant gap on the pitch and off the pitch at the moment between ourselves and Celtic.
Does this? This reconstruction is this an MBO in offering here, Dave? No.
I don't think so. I don't think it requires that. It requires someone to go in there, find out what's actually going on. At the moment, I don't think most of the board members have got any idea what's going on because they're so remote from the business. But I think John has taken on a very, very heavy burden. It's taken its toll on him. He's done it with enthusiasm. He's done it with loyalty. He's done it with passion. John is a great Rangers man, but it's come at a great damage to his health. And he's got to look after himself first. The question is now he has gone. We know there's still no CEO. There's no operational management there. There's no leadership at all. Can we take the time to, first of all, get a recruitment agency to go and try and find a chairman and a CEO? That'll take months. It will cost hundreds of thousands of pounds, which would rather be spent on the team, quite frankly. And I don't think we have that time. And I don't think bringing in someone without institutional experience and understanding of Rangers and understanding of Glasgow is going to give us a short-term turnaround. So I think the turnaround becomes a longer turnaround. And then my fear starts to become, as a fan, not a question of stopping 10 in a row was my previous objective, but right now the one thing we do hang on to is we're still the most successful club in the world. And if we slip too long, then we might lose that honour as well.
Dave, we're running out of time. Finally, from me, and thank you for joining us from Johannesburg to do this today. Have you spoken to Philippe Clement at any length? And can you confirm that you go in there backing him?
I have never met him. So I've never spoken to him, and it would be inappropriate for me to speak to him. It certainly would be the very, very first conversation I would have if I went in and try and understand where he's coming from, what was promised to him, where he's feeling about things right now, where he feels he needs support, what he needs, to get the backing. So certainly it would be a very positive discussion to see where he is and see where he feels and see if he's up for the obvious challenge that we will have over the next couple of years, because it will be a challenge. Some of the decisions, as in my previous tenure, may not always be popular, but it will always be done with the interest of getting Rangers back to where I certainly, as a supporter, but also as an investor, would like to see them.